I was in 232 Red Devils. It was an F4 squadron assigned for close air support and just whatever was needed of them to help in Operation Linebacker. Well, our job was, as I was a plane captain, and my job was to inspect and make sure we were the last people to sign the plane off and to say it was okay. And there was only one person who could override us as plane captains when it came to saying that the plane was safe to fly, and that was the maintenance officer. And so we had a big responsibility as young guys, you know, of making sure that a multi-million-dollar aircraft was ready to go and that lives would be safe to fly it. You know, there's a camaraderie amongst Marines that most people don't understand unless you are a Marine. You see a fella in a bind, you know, you help him. We help one another. We were a solid team, you know, to help each other in whatever needed to be done. I might be loading bombs. I might be fueling a plane. I might be inspecting a plane. I might be helping metal shop. It just depended on what the mission was that day or what we had to do to get a bird up to do their missions. I know whenever we did pre-flights on planes, it took a bit for the pilots and Rios to come to have confidence in what we did and trust us with what we did. And the greatest feeling in the world was whenever a pilot and a Rio came out and they knew you were the one who inspected their plane and got it ready to go on the mission with the ordnance and everything that was on it, fuel, hydraulics, oxygen, everything that it needed. And they came out and saw it was you, and they wouldn't go through the big inspection to go through every system, and they trusted you with your opinion and your ability as a plane captain to make sure that that plane was ready to go. And that was the greatest reward that a fella could have, was knowing that his pilots trusted him and thought that much about him. Everybody took pride in what they did. It was an honor to do what we were doing, to work hand in hand with the pilots and the Rios. They, you know, we held them to the highest esteem and had a lot of respect for them.
Yes.
But they knew that we gave it 110%.
Sure.
Now, there were some guys maybe they didn't feel that way about, but you know, I had made Marine of the Month. I had made Meritorious Corporal, and they trusted my judgment, and that was probably my greatest reward. You think back on things, and in many cases, I guess it's just the way the brain works. You tend to remember the fun times and the good times more than the bad times. At least that's me and the kind of person I am, and being an optimist about life, you know. And I do remember one thing in particular about some Air Force planes that came in one time that we looked up, and just out of nowhere, 4 Air Force F4s came in. And we were like, what are these camouflage birds doing landing here, you know? So we looked up, we taxied them in and chalked them, and they didn't have any ordnance on them or anything. And this colonel gets out of the airplane, and when he does, sir, you know, what's going on? He said, well, we had a bird land in Udorn, and the nose landing gear collapsed, and so, you know, we had to make a landing, had to come here. Oh, he said, can I get a Jeep? I kind of laughed. I said, well, I'll tell you what, sir, just go to the line shack, go to operations and talk to them, and if it can be done, maybe they can do it for you, you know. Okay, so him and his 7 other people went to, because there was 4 birds, the pilots and Rios, they all went back to the line shack, and they were waiting around trying to get them a Jeep, I think, so they could travel the compound. And I guess it was about 30 minutes later, we had them all fueled up, pre-flighted and ready to go, and chutes packed. And so I went back to the shack and I told this colonel, I said, "Sir, you're ready to go." He looked at me, he said, "What?" I said, "You're ready to go. We've got you topped off and the bird's ready to go." He looked at me and he said, "How many men are here in this squadron?" I said, "I think about 235 officers and enlisted." "Shit," he said. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I got 1,100 men in my squadron and there's no way in hell they could do that." I said, "Sir, you're dealing with Marines." He said, "Okay, so I guess I'm not, but we're ready to go, let's go." So he takes off back to the line. As he's on his way out there, he stopped about halfway and I looked at him and the color was just draining from his face. And I could see he was pissed. And I looked, and Metal Shop had been out there and took a insignia about this big and painted the Red Devil insignia on the side of those camouflage birds on the fuselage. And it just pissed him off. He stopped. He looked at me, he said, "Marine, do you have any idea how much it's gonna cost for us to get that off the side of that plane and repaint it?" And I looked at him, I said, "Sir, I really don't give a shit."
Explain what the Red Devil insignia.
The Red Devil insignia was the head of a devil that was painted red, that was on the green camouflage fuselage of the airplane, and it was about 3 foot tall, probably. I mean, it stuck out like a sore thumb.
And this was the logo of 232.
This was the logo of 232. We stained them pretty good. And so whenever they took off, they all took off. They circled around about 90 degrees, came in from the backside, flew over the top of our line shack in a diamond formation and hit afterburner, and they almost blew our sign over, and you never hear them coming. And it was a big loud boom as they came over, and the ground shook, our shack shook, and we all ended up on the ground because we were standing outside the line shack and we were laughing about what we had just done. And when it hit, man, we all ended up on the ground. We thought a rocket had landed in the middle of us. And we looked up and we see these 4 black smoke trails going away from us, and I was thinking to myself, they're laughing now, but they're still gonna have to get that Red Devil off of them.